Last week, we began the Disneyland Paris 2040 project, an armchair Imagineering series where we fill the countless areas reserved for expansion in both parks, the hotel area, Disney Village, and eventually the entire eastern side that still is fields of nothingness. To keep things realistic, I have a set of rules we need to follow. First of all, the expansions and transformations have to make minimal financial sense. Secondly, it has to be something the Walt Disney Company would invest in, meaning we'll have to work with IPs and others. In third and last place, they need to have logistics in mind, from backstage buildings and infrastructure to connections and roads. It's also important to note that we'll go around with no timeline in mind. I do have an opening timeline for each of the additions and changes, but to keep things easier to follow, that will be shared later on. With that out of the way, last week we reimagined Discoveryland and Fantasyland with new rides, experiences, restaurants, and even a new Star Wars land. Today, we'll go through the rest of the lands with Adventureland and Frontierland, and what can be found beyond the limits of this enchanting park. Also, make sure to tell me your own ideas down below and what your opinions are on mine. So, without further ado, let's dive into part 2 of Disneyland Paris 2040. Since we're making our way around the park from right to left, let's begin today's video in Adventureland. This area of the park is very big and has exploration at its heart. Everything from the Arabian-themed entrance, the Pirates area, and Adventure Isle not only lets you, but encourages exploration, especially the latter with all its caves, bridges, twists and turns. First order of business is to further enhance this, so a major refurbishment to Adventure Isle takes place. This sees the return of the snack bar under the Pirate Galleon, as well as its reopening. A complete makeover of the caverns, bridges, and sunken ship, but now with a new interactive game where you are given a map and have to discover clues and different treasures. These that change periodically, so every time you return, a new game can be found. Still with exploration as our target, we have our first new attraction of the day, Explorers Canoes. When the park first opened back in 1992 as Euro Disney, guests could ride the Indian canoes in the rivers of the Far West in Frontierland. This was a quite long expedition, taking somewhere around 15 minutes for the whole thing. Unfortunately, it only lasted 2 years due to the financial problems the park was suffering, the weak capacity, and high operational costs. However, Explorers Canoes would be shorter, allowing for higher capacity, as guests board them by Chalet de Marionette and go travel through the waterways around Adventure Isle, passing by the Pirate Galleon and Skull Rock, under bridges, by the sunken ship, the waterfalls of the Robertson Treehouse, and back to the place where they began. One of, if not the biggest problem with Adventureland is quite simple really, the lack of rides. While it does have a lot of attractions with Pirates of the Caribbean, the Aladdin walkthrough, the Treehouse, Indiana Jones, and, of course, Adventure Isle, only 2 rides are offered here. Seeing how Aladdin has made the Arabian part of the land his own, complete with a restaurant and walkthrough, it has always bothered me that the only ride in the resort themed to the beloved classic is in the other park. With that said, I believe it would be much better if Flying Carpets of Aladdin would be removed from Walt Disney Studios, creating some space for a new edition there, and placed in Adventureland. I believe the theming is too cartoony to fit this more real-world looking area of the park, so some changes could be done to better fit. When it comes to its new location, I believe replacing Café de la Brousse would be the way to go, creating spectacular views of Adventureland and acting as a small weenie the moment you pass through the entrance of the land. It would also add a lot of kinetic energy to this part of Adventureland, and being right at the edge of the water would be even more exciting. We've now made some changes and updates to the land, but only small things so far. Let's get to the big transformation over on the Indiana Jones area. First of all, Temple of Peril is a weak ride. The coaster is short and simple, and a good part of its theming has unfortunately been lost over the years. I've decided to completely remove Indiana Jones from the park, However, don't despair, as the world's most well-known archaeologist will make a return somewhere else. As you move to a more lush and green area of the land, Explorers Club is the last stop before you set foot into the undocumented wilderness. This is an SEA outpost, where the most adventurous members of the Society of Explorers and Adventurers rest before their trips. After it, winding paths and a tall and lush greenery hide the Polynesian paradise that is Montunui, home to a brand new attraction, shop, and restaurant, and the one and only Moana. I think it's fair to say that Moana is one of the most beloved, popular, and lucrative Disney films and IPs of the last years, and a land or area is coming sooner or later somewhere around the Disney parks. My plan would see the creation of a new water attraction in the park, one that can get you wet during the hot months and barely splashed during the colder months. It's a raft ride, a ride system that was proposed for the park in the past as Grizzly River Run but never made it. For the layout, I recreated Shanghai Disneyland's amazing Roaring Rapids, as it has an incredible dark ride indoor section that will be very important for us. As you pass through the queue themed to Polynesian structures and boats, you board your raft. Before the lift hill, a Moana and Maui animatronic are asking for your help to distract Pt.2, the huge lava monster from the first film. After reaching the top, the rockwork begins to darken up, as if it were newly created with lava. Then, you move indoors, where there's a lot of fog and water effects. After moving around for a while, you see Maui as a hawk doing his classic scream, and you go down the first drop. Right into the action, where a very large red and burning Pt.2 animatronic moves swiftly at you, as if preparing to throw a large lava ball. But the raft quickly moves out of the indoor section. The next section is thrilling, but slowly calms down as the dark rockwork begins to become clearer and the lush greenery returns. A large Tafiti with a moving head and eyes prepares you as the final drop is coming. Maui and Moana were able to restore her heart. After this turn, the rafts go down once again. After coming down, Moana comes into view thanking us for helping, and the rafts return to the station. As I said, a very important part is that the water levels are manageable, so that during the cold Parisian months, riders only get slightly splashed, similarly to parts of the Caribbean next door. Water effects will be turned on or off depending on the weather as well, to completely control the splash levels. There's another Shanghai-based attraction here, Maui's Semi-God Trails. This is the challenge trails that can be found in the Chinese park, and something that truly fits Adventureland in my opinion. If you want to truly test your skills and Adventure Isle isn't enough, this is a perfect attraction for you. There are 3 courses available, some more demanding than others, and each with their own differences. Know the Way Falls takes you behind the waterfall and into a cavern where its ceiling has a recreation of the night sky, where wayfounders of the past trained their knowledge. Cavern of the Gods takes you alongside a perilous river gorge and into a magnificent cavern where ancient rock carvings and cave paintings of the ancestors and gods can be seen. And House of the Ancients, a forgotten ancient site of Montunui filled with all kinds of old artifacts. Also in the village, a store and table service restaurant are also available. This will give the opportunity to offer some different kinds of food inspired by traditional Polynesian meals. By expanding and truly using the Adventureland area, a new access to and from Frontierland can be made, behind Explorers Club and Cowboy Cookout. This will help with crowds and also bring this back end of the park to life. Let's now move to the wildest land in the wilderness. Last video, we got rid of Meet Mickey Mouse, but a large meet and greet location for him is still needed. For this, I created Mickey's Barn House, a place where everyone can meet Mickey and friends characters throughout the day. When it comes to this land, I must say, it might be one of the most well-designed theme park lands in the world. Everything has been thought of, and the sheer scale of it is outstanding. However, I feel like there are some changes that we could do, but spoiler alert, it is the land that will remain the closest to what currently exists. Let's go to the other side of Frontierland, to Phantom Manor. This ride ties all the land together with an incredible storyline. I'm not messing anything up. In fact, I believe that some changes should happen indoors to bring back some of the mystery and details that were lost over the years. What I mean to change is right to the side of it. By bringing back a concept that never made it, the Carriage House, we can expand the storyline to outside the ride with a highly themed dining experience. On top of Boot Hill lies Phantom's Carriage House restaurant. Name is a work in progress. The facade closely resembles the original idea for the queue, but smaller in scale. This has a reason behind it. From the outside, it looks like it could never have a restaurant in it, but as you enter, an impossibly large restaurant appears. The idea is for this to be a themed experience, so all the cast members here act just like they do in the ride, stern and unimpressed. The dining room has some quite tall ceilings and is dimly lit and filled with different carriages, some complete and some still being built. From time to time, you hear footsteps, crows, and even a faint laughter in the background, as well as rain effects on the outside with the occasional thunder. The food department would be able to create some super creative and spooky meals too, which would only add to the experience. The outside would be hidden behind greenery and others, much like the show building of the ride to its side, so it couldn't be seen from the boats, making their way around the rivers of the far west. Notice what I did there? Boats, in plural? The return of the Mark Twain would allow for a capacity increase to this land of the park, but that's not all, as the River Row keelboats also make their triumphant comeback, with 3 of them zigging and zagging around Big Thunder Mountain, the Rainbow Arch, and Wilderness Island. This that gets a good clean and the addition of animatronic animals. Going back to the other part of the land, to the side of the keelboats we see the demolition of Pocahontas' Indian Village Playground and the creation of the Indian Village Theater. This is a large outdoors amphitheater facing Wilderness Island, loosely themed to a Native American village with all kinds of authentic decorations. Pueblo Trading Post now sells all kinds of Native American-inspired snacks, like Pueblo bread or corn on the cob, but also the usual popcorn. The Indian Village Theater would be accessible throughout the day, even with no major shows, with smaller kinds of activations playing on the stage. This that is placed on Wilderness Island, but would truly come alive at night, with a new take of the incredible show that is Fantasmic. This would obviously be closer to Disneyland's version, where the grand finale uses the Mark Twain paddle boat. Fountains, projections, music, and other effects are all present here. This would go a long way in reducing the demand for a spot on Central Plaza or Main Street to watch the nighttime spectacular, as they could play both at the same time, with 2 Fantasmic showings per night during the higher attendance seasons. When it comes to the capacity, I estimate it would be more than half of what Hollywood Studios Theater can hold, which is a ridiculously large theater. This is also far more than what Disneyland can hold. Fantasmic being at this location also ties in perfectly with what we're going to explore up next. With that, we have been through everything in Frontierland. We however still have a brand new land to explore. Beyond the limits of the magic lies another kind of magic, fueled by anger. This year, it was announced that the Magic Kingdom would be getting a new Villain's Land, a place where all the forces of evil from the Disney films would call home. I believe this is a spectacular idea, and one that brings a more adult atmosphere to the parks, so I couldn't let Disneyland Park out of the fun. Since we know basically nothing about this new land, I decided to make it my own, inspired by the concepts and the little information we do have. So, here is Villain's Kingdom. Coming from the intersection that connects Adventureland and Frontierland, a tunnel under the train tracks with a few large thorns creeping through and into the good side of the park, as if the power of whoever is inside is growing, can be found. Maleficent acts as the main character of the land after being banished from the kingdom. This, in my opinion, makes complete sense, since the icon of the park is the Sleeping Beauty Castle. It ties in with the park as a whole, and also explains why the land is beyond the limits of the park. The story expands that. After being banished, Maleficent casts a powerful spell that creates a wicked place and calls countless villains from many beloved Disney films. And in here, the heroes from such places can't come and save the day. As the concept art for the Magic Kingdom shows, the whole land is filled with treacherous terrain, spiky rockwork, and many thorns created by Maleficent herself. As you pass through a tunnel, everything comes into view. Right in front of you is a dark castle, similar to this one from the concept art. This is the entrance to one of the land's attractions, Maleficent's Curse. This is a highly thrilling, intimate multi-dimension coaster, feeling the need for a thrill coaster left open by the removal of Indiana Jones. The queue is themed to Maleficent's quarters, filled with dark magic items, books, and others. After boarding the trains, the MDC-12 models that allow for LSM launches and inversions, the mistress of all evil realizes you're there, and you are launched at high speeds, breaking out of the show building and into another. As you try to escape, you never actually see her, but hear her laugh all the time. The immersive environment is filled with special effects and coaster elements like a freefall drop, a gyro table, and a backwards drop, and several launches. The tracks look like they're broken apart, and supports are themed to huge thorns that go even higher than the rest. After making your way around the second show building, you're launched outside once again, but for the first time, she makes an appearance in a huge dragon form, breathing fire towards you. The trains then make their way under the pathways of the land, zigging and zagging as to not hit the rocks or thorns. After this thrilling journey through the land, you make your way back to the station and leave the trains untouched. The various winding pathways of the land are supposed to give guests a sense of being somewhat lost. These are separate from each other by the same rugged rockwork and thorns. These that are closer to the guests are highly detailed and even have a fading green light pulsating through, as if they were alive and ever-expanding. Close to the entrance of the land is this structure, taking inspiration on Epic Universe's Dark Universe Land. This would be a village setting. The story behind it is that it was once a normal Fantasyland type village with different houses, shops, and others, but when Maleficent took over, all the buildings became abandoned, dark, and twisted. This gives the whole thing another dimension, as there can be all kinds of throwbacks to when it was a normal village. The several facades hide two large stores connected to each other. One sells all kinds of different merchandise you'd expect, while the other sells wickedly fun snacks and also interactive merchandise. Similarly to the Harry Potter lands, there are different effects and interactive games guests can play here, like smoke geysers, moving items on the facades, and others. Since wands aren't really a thing, you'd be able to choose a villain's weapon or item, something like Maleficent's or the Queen of Hearts' staff, Captain Hook's dagger, or Hades' fire that could change from blue to red as you use it, but those are just some ideas of what could be available. At the back of the land is the largest show building of our whole project. This is also the most important ride of the land, the one that tells the story of it all. Villainous River Voyage is the name of this boat ride. It uses the same ride technology as Pirates of the Caribbean from Shanghai Disneyland, but with more intimate sets and less reliable on screens, resembling a large-scale classic dark ride. Before entering the queue, it has a dark castle on the top of the mountains as its facade, with the falling water signaling it's a water ride. As you enter the caverns below, it becomes darker, but your way is dimly lit by fading gas lanterns. After queuing for a while, you reach the pre-show. In here, as the doors close, the mirror comes to life. It's instantly recognizable as the magic mirror. He starts telling the story of the land, how Maleficent was banished, put a powerful spell over everything, and called many other villains to come. The magic mirror ends by saying that they're almost here, and that we're too deep into the caverns to escape. The only way now is via the water, because since it comes from outside Maleficent's reach, they can't touch it. Doors open behind the mirror and the loading station comes into view. As Disney has announced, there are 13 characters to be found in the land, and in our case, inside this attraction. These are the Queen of Hearts, Jafar, Lady Tremaine, Isma, Cruella de Vil, Captain Hook, Gaston, Mother Gothel, Ursula, Hades, Chernabog, the Evil Queen, and of course Maleficent. As you make your way down the ride, each character appears and the sets represent their own place, as if each have a perfectly designed habitat to live in. This gives it an incredible diversity of places to pass through, while the only thing that's keeping us alive are the waters flowing from the rivers of the far west beyond their reach. After passing through every character but Chernabog, the last scene comes into view. This is the largest in terms of scale and uses the projection dome tech from Shanghai. All the villains team up to get us until Chernabog appears. Absolutely huge. Fire sprays from the water around us, but before we know it, the boat falls backwards in the final drop, saving us from certain doom. I love to go through every single scene in detail, but we'd be here for hours, so let me know what your perfect scene would be featuring one of the villains. Outside is a large restaurant hidden inside similar caverns as the ones from the queue, where themed food is served, inspired by your favorite Disney villains. At night, everything becomes even spookier, with incredible light design and all kinds of sounds coming from all around you. I honestly think that this land has so much potential and that it could easily be a guest favorite if well done. Disney can really learn from Universal and have some more scary elements in their theme parks, because that's a very important part of their films. It just makes sense to do it. And with that, we reach the end of my Disneyland Park Armchair Imagineering project. If you haven't, now is the perfect time to check part 1. This isn't the end of Disneyland Paris 2040, because we still have Walt Disney Studios resort-wide with village, hotels, and transportation, and a completely new park for the third gate. Until then, I hope you enjoyed this. Make sure to tell me your own ideas down below and what you think of mine. And now, as always, thank you for watching, and that's a wrap.